Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight. My name is Allison Dennis. I serve as Executive Director for the Sitka Center for Art and Ecology. And before we begin tonight, I just want to take a moment to express our deep gratitude to the many people who support Sitka. One of the things that I value the most about these resident talks is the range of voices and perspectives that they bring forward, helping widen Sitka's circle and deepen our shared understanding. So, wherever you are, in all of the ways you support the arts, including by showing up, thank you. And with that, I am very happy to sit back and enjoy the resident talk with you and pass things over to Program Manager Maria Elting. Take it away, Maria, and thank you.
Thank you, Allison. As Allison shared, my name is Maria Elting. I serve as the program manager for the Sitka Center for Art and Ecology, and it is a pleasure to welcome you to tonight's resident talk, the last of 2025. Sitka is located at Cascade Head on the north central Oregon coast and resides on the unceded traditional lands of Indigenous people now actively represented by the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians. There's much to learn. Just one step we can take, especially when planning a visit to Sitka or the coast, is to visit the Grand Ronde Chichala Museum and Cultural Center. And now it is my pleasure to introduce the first of tonight's residents, Kohana Wilson. Kohana Wilson is a Japanese English animator, director, and educator based in Brooklyn. They are an adjunct professor in the illustration department at the Parsons School of Design, where they teach animation and drawing classes. Their animation practice involves a slow and iterative frame-by-frame process, often using pencil and paper. They enjoy presenting worlds on a tilt and playing with asymmetrical timing, elastic characters, and nonsense gravity. They direct and animate a variety of commissioned projects, including music videos for the likes of Florist, Coldplay, and the Backseat Lovers. Their Academy Award long-listed film, Edith and the Tall Child, won Slam Dance's Grand Jury Prize for Animated Shorts and has been screened internationally. Welcome to Sitka, Kohana.
Hi, hello. Thank you so much for having me and for the introduction. Thank you so much for joining us today as we share a little bit about who each of us are and the work we make. I'm Kohana. I've been at Sitka now for 4 weeks. I will devastatingly be leaving on Friday after what has been a truly life-affirming and transformative month out here in the Sitka spruces with all of these incredible artists who you will come to know and meet. As Maria mentioned, I'm an animator working with hand-drawn animation, mostly paper and pencil. These are some examples of my work, mostly from music videos that I've worked on somewhat recently. But I haven't actually been animating very much over the last couple of months. I was at another month-long residency at Yaddo in upstate New York before coming here, and over the course of these two residencies, or the last couple of months, I've mostly been working on a script and very early visual development for a feature film called Skywriting. So I figured I would use this opportunity to, for the first time, publicly speak about the film and share some very nebulous thoughts and ideas that have been coming together to make this film, some writing and some early visual development, and some photos taken over my time at Sitka that feel connected to these ideas. So I'll begin by just sharing a little bit about the film itself. Skywriting is a hand-drawn mixed media animated film incorporating ink drawings, cutout animation, and pencil animation. The film takes place in a hospital on a faraway Arctic archipelago and its neighboring seashores. The hospital is home to 10 patients who are many years into a clinical trial that promises longer life. The animals and creatures who are endemic to this archipelago, including a special kind of spotted albatross, live for hundreds of years. It's cold, there's constant polar night, and the ocean is always within earshot. The film mostly focuses on one of the patients, Junko, who's a Japanese-American retired pilot, and her slow disillusionment over the promise of this program, which leads her to all kinds of antics, including a heist, a mass escape attempt, a lesbian love affair. But ultimately, I'm trying to ask how we can deal with the truths of aging and illness in a world that tries to deny them, very much like our own, and what we lose when we medicalize aging and death. Many important formative experiences with illness and grief have kind of come together to make this film, but I wanted to draw special attention today to a profound recent one that changed me and has informed much of the film, which was the passing of my Japanese grandmother, who died suddenly a couple of years ago. Soon after she passed, we observed many Buddhist funeral ritual rites, among which included a vigil where we stayed with her day and night for 3 days in a ceremony known as Otsuya, and a bone-picking ceremony where we transferred her cremated ashen bones with shared chopsticks into an urn, which is known as kotsuage. This was the first funeral I'd attended for a person I loved and was very close to. And one of the things that struck me most deeply, among many things, was how unafraid everyone around me was. And this is mostly the women in my family, so my mom and my aunts, but how unafraid they were of taking time with the dying body. Death wasn't a single bounded event. It wasn't something to rush or hide from. We lived alongside it. So we cooked and shared dinners in the next room. We drank her favorite beer. We napped next to her. We kept a candle lit on an altar that didn't go out for 3 days. We stayed with her and took our time. And what this revealed to me was that just as love has no true end states, grief also has no true end states. And I think there are real Western tendencies and attitudes toward death and grief and certain systems of modern healthcare that tend to speak in end states, as if to promise a more legible future or a someday without pain or grief. Think of the very idea of stages of grief. I'm interested in what we stand to learn from grief and from death if we shift away from the impulse to name and chart grief and health in these ways with these markers. I've also been very preoccupied while I've been here with the idea of opacity and what it means to reconcile with that which is untranslatable, irreducible, and not fully knowable within these constructs that value and prioritize transparency. So particularly as this relates to death work, to health, and to disability. I think this reveals itself, or hopefully will reveal itself in many ways in the film. The hyperillumination of and surveillance within the hospital versus the dim, mutable, and enduring shorelines, and the material palette of the film, which will include animating with layers, using a multi-plane downshooter setup, and using different transparencies of paper. I'll share some animation tests in a moment that shows you what I mean by this. I brought my own small library with me here from New York, and I've just been going back and forth between several books as the film has been coming together, and I just wanted to share some guiding principles that have felt very important from some of these books. Rachel Carson in The Edge of the Sea writes that the intertidal zone is a site of eternal compromise, conflict, and change. Simone Weil in Gravity and Grace writes, I am also other than who I imagine myself to be. And Edward Glissant in Poetics of Relation argues for a right to opacity. These have really become first principles for the film. I've made sure that every day while I've been here, I've had some time to see the Pacific, or to be with the Pacific, which means seeing it, or hearing it, or touching it. I was born and raised in Hong Kong. I live in New York now. And all of my Japanese family, except my mom, still live in Japan. The rest of them live in Hong Kong. And being just an ocean away from them has been very, very special because I'm normally by the other ocean, the Atlantic. So to do this Pacific proximity thing, I've been going up to Cascade Head nearly every day. It's just been a beautiful, beautiful place to be. It was wonderful and illuminating to also revisit, I believe, chapter 21 of Braiding Sweetgrass, Burning Cascade Head, and learn more about its history and context. But I think Cascade Head has also inspired a lot of writing about opacities because the place itself moves through different transparencies so quickly, almost hourly. And sometimes you can only see the reflection of the sun, but not the sun itself, because the sun is obscured by fog and you can only, but the ocean's surface isn't. Walking through this kind of gauze of fog and feeling the pinpricks of mist, watching that same mist slip into the valleys of the mountains and give way to sunlight. It's all very haptic. And it feels bizarre to be walking through something so diaphanous and gauzy that still feels very, very thick. Dark nighttime walks and fog share this in common, opacity and its many tricks. I've been very interested also in finding ways to explore these ideas of opacity in the actual animation techniques that I'm using for the film. And one way has been through making these ink paintings. I've been making these with seawater from the Pacific, sand from nearby beaches, and sumi ink. So the idea is that you lay down each of these materials in varying densities across a page, and once the ink and the seawater dries, the sand just slips right off and it reveals this kind of picture below. And the ink kind of starts to popcorn and model in these really lovely ways across the page, and I plan to be using this technique for the backgrounds of the film. These are some close-ups of the paintings themselves. I did a residency out in the Cape Cod Dunes on the East Coast this summer, so by the Atlantic Ocean, another coastal residency. And I was creating paintings using the same techniques there, using water from the Atlantic and sand from the dunes. And it's been really fascinating to see how the paintings differ because the sand and the seawater just behave in completely different ways. These two are from the Pacific, and this one is from the Atlantic. They're to the same scale, the same ink is used, the same paper is used. Whether it's the salinity or the how fine the sand grains are, the results just vary in these ways that I'm really excited about. And to close my 10 minutes, I thought I would read the scene description to the opening of the film while playing this animation test. So this test was made using a multi-plane down-shooter setup, which means that a fixed camera is pointed down toward stacks of paper, and the animation is done kind of underneath the camera. So in this particular shot, this billowing tarp is made up of individually cut out frames of tracing paper. So one sheet is placed down, photos taken, next sheet is placed down, photos taken, etc. But these frames of animation, the tarp itself, is resting on top of many other layers and sheets of paper that vary in different opacities. Some are solid sheets of paper, some are tracing paper to reveal these different foreground or background elements. I'll just get into reading the scene description. This is the description of the opening scene of the film that introduces us into the world. A single albatross hovers over an open black ocean. Its wings are locked in flight. Polar night, the world is awash in blue. The sky and ocean are inky and bleeding into one another. A second albatross flies into frame. They both dive. They're intertwined in curved flight, careening between water and wind. We're catching up to them, stuck in the drag of their bodies. Many more albatrosses appear until we're caught dead center in a swirling, dizzying lattice of birds. Tidal emerges from dots, skywriting. A single plane cuts through the flurry in a crude, straight line. The title separates, like cleaved clouds. The camera pans down, down, down. It begins in the velvet black of the sky, descending toward the sickly green, lonely, obtrusive glow of a U-shaped structure atop a cragged island, the hospital. We have lost true dark. The island is small, home only to the clinic, a short runway, and countless roosting seabirds. It's hedged in by stern rock faces in the spittle of the sea. In the top floor's leftmost room, a crowd of bodies, the patients, are glued to the window and craning their necks to steal a good look at the plane. To close, I know I talked a lot today about fog and darkness, but so much of my time here was spent in literal sunshine and the warmth of this cohort. I saw this rainbow on my very first day up on Cascade Head. I saw a meteor shower, canoed for the first time, went to a casino for the first time, cold plunged, went crabbing, shared many meals, and just made countless memories with this really special group that I'll hold dear for a very long time. I also, while I was here, was prompted to revisit this note that I wrote down a few months ago while I was doing some initial research for this film. And I was talking about it just this morning with Cordy, who you'll meet in just a moment. who has also just been thinking about queerness and seashores in similar ways, which I just felt very moved by. The hospital in this film is based on the now demolished Neponset Beach Hospital, which, for those of you who are familiar with New York at all, it's in the Rockaways in New York, beachside hospital. And it's the hospital that marked where the queer zone of Jacob Riis Beach began. And in spending a lot of time here on these Pacific shorelines with queer and trans artists and new fast friends, swimming and sitting on rock faces and wrapped up in quilts, I can't help but think again of these histories of seashores as sites of queer respite throughout time. There's so much to say here about being pushed out into a marginal world and living on the fray, but being queer and being here with other queer people and living just all together out here feels like it chimes really beautifully with this ancient kind of primordial picture of the seashore and of gender as a site of eternal change, conflict, and compromise, as Rachel Carson puts it. And I feel overcome truly with gratitude and love to have just experienced this place with all of you. So I owe so much of this time to you. Thank you. Evan, Cordy, Vanessa, Heejo, Linda, Fiona, Emily, and Sam. Honored and thrilled. Thank you so much for being here and for listening.
Thank you so much, Kohana. It was such an honor to welcome you home to the Pacific Ocean the first time in a while. And there's some love in the chat and a question. Someone just wants to confirm that the materials for your paintings were water, sand, and ink. Is that complete?
Yes, they were. Seawater and ink, and sand from the shore that the water was taken.
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, our next presenter is Cordy Joan. Cordy Joan is an educator, oral historian, and quilter based in California. They are the lead producer of the Transmissions Quilt Project, an international queer quilting project convening a team of other queer and trans artists to make quilts for trans people. They've taught at Berkeley High School, El Cerrito High School, the Athenian School, and a number of other queer art programs. Please join me in welcoming Cordy to Sitka.
Hello. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having me. I feel just so moved to be here, and I somewhat expected that when I was driving up, but what I wasn't expecting so much was how moved I would be by the other residents. I kind of thought it would be solo mode, but it's actually proven to be just so connected with you all. So thank you, everyone. Yeah, Kohana's talk goes really nicely into mine, some of the themes. I think there's maybe one photo that we both use, so some sweet overlaps. This is a picture from outside my studio at night. You'll hear later that I've been doing some work with curtains here, so I wasn't sure what to do as my first slide, and here we are with some blinds drawn. And I will start us with maybe the first thing that I retained when I arrived at Sitka was a note in our arrival booklet that said, every night the HOA says that you have to draw your curtains to protect the wildlife. And it became, at first it was very serious. It was sweet to like look down from my room and see Kohana and others like drawing their blinds each night. And yeah, it's just, I'm thinking about curtains a lot, and I will get there. Okay, so me, this is all pre-Sitka stuff. This is me. This is a photo taken by my friend Alistair. I live in Oakland, California. I make quilts there. I am originally from New Jersey, but I've been in Oakland for just over 5 years. This is a photo taken of a quilt I made for the person over here named Dan. This is at the Albany Bulb in California, and it's a part of the project that I'm about to introduce you to. Okay, so this project, which is what I applied to Sitka with, is called Transmissions, Quilts for Trans People. I applied through the curator track, I think it's called. So I'm working on this big project, and yeah, so it's a project that makes quilts for individually nominated trans people, with the idea that quilts have been given throughout all of time and across all cultures. They've been given as gifts to mark life transitions. Oftentimes, the transitions they mark are things like birth, marriage, sometimes divorce, and death. Those are like kind of the top four that people talk about. And the idea of this project is to expand that list to include genderqueer people arriving to themselves. So it's not a baby quilts project, it's more of an arrival quilts project, celebrating people doing the hard work of becoming themselves. So each quilt is made through the same process. It starts with the nomination, and then the person is paired with a trans quilter, and they go through an interview together, which is kind of like an oral history style conversation. And then hopefully with that conversation, the quilter has enough info to make a quilt that represents and is a perfect fit for the recipient. They're like not portraits, not magical objects, but some maybe combination of the two. So part of the project is that this originally started as grant requirements. We had like public exhibitions that we needed to do for some of our first grants. So this was our first show at the Berkeley Public Library in California this past June. And the first 14 quilts all hanging together in a public library before they were sent to their recipients. And then this was a recent show in Portland at PNCA. It was a group show with a couple of other genderqueer artists in Portland. And yeah, there's this theme of climbing out of the ocean, like trans people as like mythical creatures that have come out of the sea and then land on the seashore. So in this PNCA exhibition, one of the other artists was a driftwood and leather sculptor. So we draped quilts over driftwood. So yeah, I showed up at Sitka and made the first quilt. This is the one that you can see in pieces across the way at the last exhibit. And now it needed to actually be turned into its quilt. So week one was about quilt number one from my friend Owen. It also worked pretty well because Owen then visited me here and we had a little photo shoot. So that's us near the water. Thank you, Dev, for the photos. And yeah, so each quilt is delivered, and then the recipient has a chance to go through these photo shoots. And that was partially like a logistical decision. We needed something for exhibits, and then once we give the quilts away, like what can we actually put up in a show? So we had these photo shoots, and then once the photo shoots started coming in, we realized it's a whole important part of the project. So this is a photo shoot. And then week two, we worked on another quilt. This was the recycled photo, Kohana. This is a quilting bee we had with some of the other residents and Nancy. I was working on a quilt by a person named Rowan, and I was given the quilt top, and it was our job here to turn it into a complete quilt. So as a group, we did something called a quilting bee, which is just a traditional site where people, often women, gather and finish quilts together. We learned something called tie quilting, and we finished this ocean quilt for a person over in Florida, which it's now in the mail, and hopefully it's going to make it to them. We had a little quilting bee in my studio, and then that's the finished quilt. And then after that, we went into the world and we had a photo shoot. So this is Evan, who you're going to meet later, who does many things. And one of them is carries cameras around. I think you can see two around their neck. So we went canoeing out to the spit, and we had this photo shoot. So I'm going to show you some pics. The theme of the shoot was throwing. I can't remember how it started. I think Evan and I both in the same moment kind of turned to each other and were like, we should throw them. It was like a rare day of sun here. There was something about the sun coming over a hill, and we were like, let's see if we can make them block out the sun or get backlit or catch wind. So yeah, we threw them. And we had a lot of fun doing it. As you can see, it was gleeful. We got some good photos. Evan is someone you should work with over and over again. I really love these for so many reasons, including that when the quilt like unfurls itself, it looks kind of like an underwater sea creature. It makes me think of blanket octopuses specifically. But yeah, so this is the back of the quilt, but because of the sun through it, you can see the top design glowing. That's another throw. We did some splashing. We did end up getting it very wet. We had a little Gollum by the pond photo shoot moment. Thank you to our secret they them model who you can't see. And then we did go swimming fully with it. And I like this picture because it looks very similar to when it was flying through the air. So okay, so those are the quilts. Okay, I'm at weeks 3 and 4. So we're in the second half. We're now into curtains. So one of the parts of the exhibit that I keep mentioning is like, what do we actually show? We have these quilts. We're going to make 50 quilts and give them to people around the world, mostly the country, but a couple around the world. And we're going to give them away. And then we have these shows, and it's like, well, what do we put up in the show? So that's why we did the photo shoots to start, and they're beautiful. We print them large. Another thing that's happening is this series of curtains. So one of our predecessor queer quilt projects is, of course, the Names Project, the AIDS Memorial Quilt, where people submit panels that are 3 foot by 6 foot in honor of a person who died of AIDS. So that's a very large project that I bet a lot of people have heard about. And that size, 3 foot by 6 foot, is chosen because it's said to be the size of a grave site. So each panel corresponds with one grave. So our project, which is a descendant of that project, and I wanted to like figure out a way to nod to that, we make pieces that are also 3 foot by 6 foot, commissioned from project artists, separate from the big quilts. But the idea here is instead of lying horizontal gravesite death, can we make them vertical and somehow figure out if curtains represent life? So my big like personal journey right now is figuring out how curtains represent life. And so I'm making curtains. So this is my room here. I had so much fun. I got to take all the curtains down here and replace them with my own. That was nighttime. This is morning. Light coming through. They all look really cool with light coming through them. Those are some curtains also as a part of the project you can see. So this is an example in Portland of why we need curtains because we don't have any quilts, but we have curtains and pictures. Great. Here's another set. This was nighttime on the left, morning on the right. This is a sewing style called bojagi, which is a traditional Korean sewing. It's usually meant as like wrapping cloths, so like wrapping gifts to people. It makes when it's a curtain, I like to think that curtains kind of wrap our rooms and our lives. I don't think that's a stretch, but you can fight me on that. Here's another night, morning. It was so fun waking up in the mornings because I got to see what they looked like. I was like giddy waking up because I got to see the sun through these curtains. And then this isn't really a curtain, this is more wrapping cloth, but this is for Heejo, my studio mate. This was my first experiment in silk and indigo dye. So I did hang it in front of the window just because it's fun, but it's not a curtain, it's a wrapping cloth. I really don't know how to land the plane with this one, Kohana. You ended yours so well. This is just a picture of Fiona's window a bunch of times. Curtains, I don't know, they're just really cool to me. I think they're two-sided pieces. Often we don't relate to art as two-sided. They on one side are for our private lives, on the other they like are supposed to block the public out. This is Fiona's blocking me out from being able to look at her writing. I did not figure out the answer to why curtains represent life here, but I've been able to explore it and I've done some writing and I think I'm onto something. So I'm going to keep going, but I'm going to stop talking for now.
Thank you so much for sharing, Cordy. It's really affirming to know that we're doing work here at Sitka that leads to people frolicking in mermaid pools with quilts. So thank you for sharing. And we do have a question for you. Emily asks, these are all so beautiful. What was your introduction to quilting?
Thank you for that question. I wanted to make a gift for someone, and okay, it was the start of the project. Someone who I was dating showed me the quilts that had been given when they were born and conveyed that it was basically made for the wrong person. The wrong name was on it, the wrong vibe was in it. So I taught myself to quilt and made them one that was like actually meant to be for them. So
Beautiful. Carrying on the heritage of gift giving in that way. Thank you so much. Next up is Sam Sharp. Sam Sharp grew up in North Central Ohio. A writer and environmental educator, he holds an MFA from the University of Wyoming with a concurrent degree in environmental and natural resources. His work explores connections between bodies, love, and place with an eye for overlooked animals and flyover landscapes. His essays have been named Best of the Net and nominated for a Pushcart Prize, appearing in Midwest Review, Western Confluence, Midwest Weird, and elsewhere. He lives in Missoula, Montana, where he teaches field courses for the Wild Rockies Field Institute. Sitka community, please join me in giving Sam a warm welcome.
Thank you so much, Maria. And wow, my head's still spinning from watching and listening to Kohana and Cordy. I want to scream. I want to just like absolutely scream. So in love and amazed by everyone here. Similar had kind of anticipated a sort of hermitude experience, but I got here last week and yeah, got here last Tuesday, and it's kind of yeah, I want to get to know everyone more, and I'm just very impressed and excited by you all. So very grateful to be here, and yeah, I woke up this morning and I had no idea what I was going to say today. I was like, I need to like, I'll just go off the cuff, and then I was like, no, I gotta have something. So I'm going to share perhaps the most low tech presentation on the history of the world. Yeah, I got here at Sitka and I've tried to work on a few things. That's kind of the summary of my presentation. This is the lovely table. I'm like a nerd for desks and tables. I love them. And I was teaching for Wild Records Field Institute this year. It had me kind of living in a tent for something like 70 days, just kind of like living outside all the time. And doing that a lot is like I've woken up some mornings at Sitka and the desk and the spruces and the ferns, and I just cry, and I'm so happy. It really is like makes me very happy to have this writing space. After kind of taking a break from writing, that's really I've tried to come to Sitka to both write and rest and kind of learn a place. So, going to talk today about my attempt to do that. So Kohana mentioned the word opacity, which I just love that word so much. And I think it really lends itself to the form of writing that I have leaned into recently, which is kind of a traditional form of personal essays and personal essay as this kind of like medieval form that comes out of France and leaning into the real meaning of essay. And every essayist loves to say it, that the word essay comes from the French word essayer, which means to try. It also means to attempt or to make an effort. Cambridge Dictionary uses the example, let's try and climb that tree. It also means to try on, as in trying on clothes to see if they fit or to try out. And in a lot of ways, my time at Sitka has been like an existential fashion show. I'm just kind of trying on these kind of forms and trying to write. Another example is he's trying to write new ways to revise because he's really stuck on a bunch of essays, which is me. So I kind of liken writing personal essays to walking through these opaque landscapes. I also love fog quite a bit. I used to live in Wyoming, where fog is not very seen, or rain. And so now where I live in Missoula, it's a little closer, but the landscape here is so foggy and delicious. And I love walking and being in mist and kind of being enraptured in it. And it really feels like that's what writing is to me, that you're navigating into the unknown. And it's thrilling. And that life is like that. But it's stressful in life. Some with writing it's different. And so it's kind of how I think about it. So came here to work on some projects that had been stuck and to revise them in new ways. And I'm not a visual artist, and I'm not. Yeah, I collage, and that's kind of my own private art form that I love doing. And this is the first time where I've printed out essays that are kind of stuck, and then cut them up and pasted them on cardboard on the floor. Cordy was generous to loan me this wonderful sheet, and I've been taking advantage of it and having so much fun and kind of being manic and just getting glue everywhere and cutting out these essays. And sometimes when you print out an essay, I've noticed you print something out and read a page out loud, and it's like there's only one sentence on that page that matters. And so you can just cut it up and glue it, and it's like that is the sentence that I want. So I'm having a lot of fun revising in that way. I'm from Ohio, and that is generally kind of what I've been writing about. I'm writing a lot of nonfiction, writing some kind of memoir-ish stuff about Ohio, and Ohio brands itself as the heart of it all, which I think is so funny. But the word from Ohio, which I think is very important, comes from a Seneca word, which means good river or great river, referring to the Ohio. And so the Ohio is part of the Seneca homeland. Seneca is based in New York right now, but I find that very important in telling for what Ohio is. And so on that note, I'm just going to read an excerpt for a few minutes of something I've been working on. And yeah, I'll try to breathe. I joked earlier that I kind of black out on Zoom, but I'm trying to like stay up, stay conscious. So I'm just going to read. You can close your eyes, or you could look at this opaque picture of an Ohio landscape that I hold dear. Loving Ohio is like being in an abusive relationship. It's like loving a project person, someone who, you tell yourself, with unyielding love and therapy, can become a healthy partner. The woods I knew were ragged patches of maples and dogwoods, strangled by vines, pinned between failed farms and doting suburbs. Ravines were swollen with washing machines, sinks, ladders, junked cars. There were no overlooks, no cliffs, no scenic rivers. The great river of the Ohio is undrinkable and overfished. In 2024, volunteers pulled 186,000 pounds of trash and 1,000 tires from the Ohio. One nonprofit director optimistically described it as the most resilient ecosystem in the country. Rather than an obstacle to inspiration, Ohio's muddy character is what makes it a place of deep imagination. Everywhere you look, there are suggestions of wildness, from the stumps of witness trees to ivy overtaking a foreclosed GM factory. Remnants of locks built along the Erie Canal sink near the Cuyahoga, which no longer burns, but where otters float downstream between heaps of trash. Across the road from my parents' house, hundreds of white pines towered above the field. The trees were logged. The homeowners died. Sloppy, the man who lived there, got leukemia. I don't know Sloppy's real name. That's just what people called him. He had cataracts and worked on junk cars. My bedroom window overlooked the farm, and I worked on stories I never finished, and he worked on cars that never ran. The cars are melting into the grass now, and stray cats have taken over the white farmhouse. There are 40 cats at least. They watch us from beneath the porch when we walk by. My dad says it gives them the willies. The red barns there are caving in. Vultures roost in the lot. They hang there like crucifixes, dozens of them, peering down at the cats below, who spend their days watching the birds above. Imagination here is not a leisurely pontification you embark on for gazing at the Tetons. It is a necessity. It is a necessity because it seemed to me that the land here was constantly under siege. Men claimed an acre here, an acre there, and defended their claim with guns, and signs warning you of their guns, and pickup trucks, where carcasses of deer were ratchet strapped to the backs, their tongues hanging limp like leather belts. Fields were cleared to become Five Belows and Home Depots. At West Branch State Park, where I would intervene, I worked as a kind of like natural resource officer, and a lot of this writing takes place at West Branch doing conservation work. So that little addition. At West Branch, we mowed the grass in straight lines. We did everything in straight lines. We raked the sand in straight lines. We planted native oaks and willows in straight lines. We sprayed glyphosate in straight lines. We cleared land for RVers in straight lines. We cleared rectangles in straight lines. We were working to conserve the landscape, but we were maintaining an image of straightness. Meanwhile, the vegetation resisted. Dogswood resprouted. The geese harassed. Grass regrew. Under the imported sand at the beach was enough goose poop to spread E. coli. Beneath the picnic tables we mixed to look clean, was a reality of unspeakable filth. I once scraped a diaper off the picnic table that had melted into the sun on 4th of July, and I watched a woman and her kids sit down and eat Cheez-Its off the table. The roadsides were clear of trash, but take a few steps into the woods, and you'd find old washing machines, bags of empty soup cans, decrepit toilets, ragged couches, cars from the 1950s. If the land spoke to us, how could we listen? We were supposedly maintaining this landscape in its natural state, but the nature here was hell-bent on becoming something else. I could not help but see a parallel inside my own body, because the nature of Ohio has always been queer. It's a queer landscape. It's queer in the roadsides. It's queer in the hills. It's queer in the lake. Queer, 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 all the way down. And so I want to kind of wrap up by drawing out that parallel that I'm kind of exploring and writing is between my body and the Ohio landscape, and feeling like I am Ohio, like it just is me, like I can't understand myself outside of it, and writing about conserving that landscape in that park in the context of a queer landscape that is a site of incredible strangeness and displacement, where the writer Scott Russell Sanders grew up, and he wrote a lot about being displaced from that ecosystem that basically was flooded and his family had to move, and he's written about that a lot, and kind of writing about him as well. So kind of a messy excerpt because I'm still trying to read some, and just want to kind of wrap up by noting that it's so helpful to be here in Oregon writing about this. Willa Cather and both Toni Morrison have written a lot about looking back home in Ohio and getting a kind of clarity from the place you're writing about from afar, and the tension of loving someplace but feeling like you can never belong there is to write on, I find. So that's kind of what I've been here at Sitka, agonizing over in the mornings, freaking out and tunneling into, and freaking out. And then in the evening, I get to escape, like go hike, and learning the Cascade Head region is a true buoy and an anchor, really, in my time here. And I love getting to know all the residents and this place, and I'm excited to get to do it for another week. So thank you, everyone, for having me here. I'm very grateful. And I'll pass it back to Maria.
Thanks so much, Sam. You get to go back to being a Luddite now. Thanks for taking the time to share. Next up, we have Heejo Kim. Heejo Kim received an MFA in May 2023 from the Leroy E. Hofberger School of Painting program at the Maryland Institute College of Art in Baltimore. She received her BFA from the painting program at Hongik University in Seoul, South Korea in 2018. Kim's figurative oil paintings focus on reestablishing identity and existence through relationships with others and objects. Her practice explores ambiguity by dissolving visible markers of identity, such as gender, age, and ethnicity, allowing her figures to quietly be rather than act. Welcome, Heejo.
Hi, this is Heejo Kim from Korea, currently based in Baltimore. So before I begin, I want to share that I won't be explaining the specific meaning of each painting. I truly enjoy hearing how others interpret my work. So instead, I will just focus on the themes I explore and what I experienced during my month here at Sitka. I also brought some paintings from past years, as well as works I developed during this residency. So my work explores interconnectedness, especially moments where tenderness emerged between people, objects, and environments. I draw from Roland Barthes' idea of tenderness as a lasting, quiet form of love, a way of relating that doesn't rely on clarity or certainty. The figures in my paintings remain intentionally ambiguous. Gender, age, nationality, and ethnicity are not fixed. This comes from the Buddhist concept of dependent arising, which suggests that the self is never solid, but constantly shaped through relationship with others, objects, and space. So, like, put simply, I exist because of you, and you exist because of me. Based on these ideas, the figures' identities are always reconstructed through their encounters. My focus on this subject matter began because relationships have always been challenging for me. Navigating life as a woman, Asian, and immigrant in the United States created like tensions that shaped the emotional tone of my paintings. Recognizing the inavailability of our interconnectedness, and the quiet power of tenderness helped me realize that sometimes the simplest ideas can speak to profound questions. So, until recently, many of my works took place in indoor settings, and my questions were mostly about like human relationships, like how we stay close, how we misunderstand one another, and how we continue despite like vulnerability. So while exploring the Sitka Library, I really loved that place. I came across a beautiful collection of books, including This Wound is a Word by Billy Leigh Belcourt. I won't go deeply into theory about this book, but one idea stayed with me, the colonial love, which they describe as a love that doesn't aim for completion or control, but allows intimacy to remain open and ongoing, even while acknowledging sadness and instability. So this idea helped me deepen something in my figures and in myself as well. Also, like briefly to talk about my material practice, I sometimes choose colors intuitively, but thinking right now, I also have often like like color palettes from nature as well, like sunsets, flowers, or the incredible colors in the bodies of birds, insects, or wild animals. Alongside oil paint, I also love to experiment with unconventional materials as well, such as baking soda, spray paint, paper, and crushed glass to create like surfaces that hold emotional texture. Coming to Seika shifted something important for me. For the first time, I spent long periods outdoors, walking, observing, and simply being with the landscape. I had never gone hiking alone before, but here I found myself doing it often. Even like hiking in the rain became enjoyable, listening to the wind, smelling wet earth, letting myself get soaked. It all made me feel like I was being like part of the environment. And also like, because I usually don't work from any photography references, I realized how limited my visual understanding of nature had been. Over this month, I learned how trees lean into the wind, how branches make space for one another, how moss attach itself, and how weather shifts the color of everything around it. So I believe like these experiences have started to form a new visual language in my mind. Nature also brought up like something personal. I used to feel like undefined fear toward nature because like when I was young, unresolved emotions towards someone else, someone close to me were projected onto the natural world. Like trees and forests always felt like slightly intimidating before, like, but being here, like seeing how nature survives, collaborates, and supports itself, softened that fear. It made me rethink about like what interconnectedness means, not only like among people, but also like across entire ecosystem. And also like understanding ecological like networks, especially the mycorrhizal systems beneath the forest floor ground, changed my perspective, realizing that communication and like support are not abstract concept but active living system gave me comfort. This expanded how I view relationships in my paintings. So here at Sitka, these ideas and observations merged. During my first week, I wasn't sure what to paint yet. I only knew what I wanted to explore. So I began with realistic watercolor studies of mushrooms, leaves, and tree bark to familiarize myself with natural forms that you guys saw from the previous page. As I spent more time in the environment, I began imagining like relationship not only between people, but between humans and nature, how forms might echo one another, how emotions might be absorbed or reflected across species, and how closeness doesn't always require understanding. So this shift in perspective shaped to the two oil paintings I completed here. Conceptually, they mark the early stage of this new exploration, my first steps into like outdoor spaces, imagining how figures might respond to or interact with natural structures. I also made several small drawings that may develop into oil paintings once I'm back in Baltimore, many of them inspired by my days here, listening to the Pacific Ocean at night, kayaking and on the river together, and walking through thick layers of mist in the mountains, the Cascade Head. So even though I don't have many finished works from this month, I feel like I'm living with something more important, a shift in how I see and a new relationships with nature that I didn't have before. So this residency opened a door for me to expand my work beyond human relationships and into a broader like ecological tenderness. So I know that I'm getting to the last page. So as I wrap up, I want to say how meaningful this month has been for me. I met incredible people here, and it still surprised me how quickly we formed such heartfelt memories together. I feel like I learned a new way of loving and caring through this community. I'm deeply grateful to Sika for giving me this space and this time. Thank you so much. And I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heejo. I think sometimes there's a misconception about Sitka's programming that you have to have some sort of previous experience in nature or ecology defining your program in order to be a resident here. So thank you for sharing from the perspective of someone who used this as their first introduction to those spaces. Cordy has a question, and they ask, what's it like working small?
Wow, that's a really good question. Because like most of my work are pretty like large sizes before, not familiar with like working with small sizes. But like here, like because of like transportation issue, I only brought like small size of canvases this time. It requires a lot of like attentions and time to finish, like in a similar way of like finishing your big painting. And so it was first time it was a little bit like difficult for me to handle that. Like thinking it's small size and I want to like finish make a like a painting for that one, but I don't know how to put all the like small details and all the things and control my brushes for like small objects and all the things like that. But I'm getting like after spending some times here, I got used to like how to manage that and can fully immerse in like fully into that small painting, like into that painting, even though it's small size is small. So I believe it's kind of like it feels like the same way of like working big size, but it has more like small but like powerful. thing for me.
Thank you so much. Okay, our last speaker this evening is Evan Benally Atwood. Evan Benally Atwood is an artist from New Mexico based in the Pacific Northwest, focused on the cross-pollination of cultural practices and current queerness. Utilizing light, sounds, and color, they craft films, make music and noise, document things and moments, and attempt to weave it all together. Evan, over to you.
Oh my gosh, hi. Everyone is so amazing that I feel like the adrenaline is like fully hitting my core right now. Gosh. Yeah, to each and every one of you, you are so special, and I feel such a weird like kinship with you, even though we've only known each other a short period. Even though I made like a video diary to share, I feel like I'm like skipping out on the examination of what my work is supposed to be. As someone that went to business school, I feel like I didn't give myself like a chance to like to art as a kid, and or like, going into this business school. I don't know. It gave me depression. And so I feel like now the reason why my fingers are in so many different like creative pots is because I'm just trying to figure out what makes me feel good, and I'm really just winging it right now because I'm just inspired and like flowing off of how special each and one of you are. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna run out of time. This is me having fun in being manic in my existential fashion show in these opaque landscapes. I might talk over my own video, but I made everything here. That's a Heejo in the background. Okay, that's probably the most like technologically advanced presentation I possibly could have done.
That was amazing, Evan. I just spent all of last week in Santa Fe talking about the importance of place, but I could have just shown that video and gotten the point across. So thank you for sharing. Yeah, thank you again, Evan. Thank you, Kohana, Cordy, Sam, Heejo, for taking us inside of your practices this evening. Thank you, Sitka Wi-Fi, for allowing 5 people to stream from it without dropping once. Thank you, Sitka community, for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you all in our first talk of 2026 on January 27th. Otherwise, good night, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us.